fantastic guest, Mr. Andrew Walker, the author of this beautiful book, The Successful Sinner. Now, we're going to talk about this book. I want to get it so you can see it. This is a fantastic book. But first, let's welcome Andrew to the show. Hey, Andrew, how you doing?
Hey, Wayman, thank you so much for inviting me on as a guest. Uh, Certainly appreciate it. I
Yeah.
love being here with you, and I'm humbled to be here with you. So I thank you for that. I really do.
Well, man, it's no problem because I'll tell you this right here. When I first met you, we had a connection, and I'm like, ain't nothing like a connection. It's called the kindred spirits. So we have that connection. I don't want to say it's like John and Jesus, but when I saw you, my insides did leap for joy. So thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you, and you being I consider you to be a friend,
Yes.
not just a co-host or a guest on the show. So Andrew, tell the people about you, and a little bit about you in the background about Andrew C. Walker.
Well, I'm going to not go too far in depth, but
Okay.
I'm an individual that came out of a rural area of Lawrenceville, Virginia, and that's about 70 miles south of Richmond,
Okay.
to get an idea of where I'm at. Richmond, capital of Virginia. And, I grew up humble beginnings. My mother was a domestic worker. My father was a public worker. And, I just came up in an atmosphere of love and
Hmm.
learning. Although my father was the disciplinarian,
Hmm.
I still had the opportunity to grow and understand what it meant to be a provider because my
Okay.
father was a provider of the family,
Hmm.
and that's who I took after. That's who I watched what he did, and that's how I grew. And going to school, to be totally honest, I never really liked school anyway.
Right.
But just being there and
Hmm.
having an opportunity to grow as an individual, to
Hmm.
learn. One of the biggest things that captured my attention growing through life and becoming an adult is that things that we learn, and I'll call it social mirroring, is how it's
Okay.
presented to me. Things that we learn, we carry through life, but we don't think about it. We just do it because it has been presented to us.
Hmm.
And some things, as we grow, we take it with us. And as we get older, there's a scripture, and I just use it for clarity:
Hmm.
train up a child in the way that they should go. Once they get old, they won't depart from it.
Hmm.
And that's a good teaching. But there are a lot of things that we learn when we're young. When we get old, it is no longer valuable to us,
Right.
although it might have been a lesson then.
Hmm.
So I came again from humble beginnings. I came from a rural area.
Hmm.
I'm a country boy. I'm a
Okay.
country boy. You've heard the saying, you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy.
Well, check
So,
this out. Well, you said something because you said mirroring, and your father was an example. So let's just talk about that. When you were growing up, how was it growing up, understanding that your father was a disciplinarian, and how did it motivate you also to see your mother being a domestic worker? So what? How did that motivate you to do what you're doing now, write books and things of that nature?
when I was young, there was a radio station out of Nashville, Tennessee,
Hmm.
um, WLAC, Nashville, Tennessee, and it played all of the current music that related to our culture.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to be, at an early age,
Yes.
radio, television, and theater is what I wanted to get into.
Okay.
And in watching my father, now this was a discipline because
Hmm.
in sharing this, understand, um, a lot of times individuals can't relate to it at this stage of the game because
Right.
of the age factor, things of that nature. But
Hmm.
I used to plow behind a mule, stuff like that. My father
Okay.
had a garden.
Hmm.
So in understanding the ethics, the integrity of work is what my father showed me.
Hmm.
This has to be done. This is what we have to do. We're going to get it done. Now, because I like to watch TV when I was small, my father said, "Hey, boy, look, come out of that house and get out of here because we got something to do."
Right.
But I say that to say that was discipline. In other words, he would tell me to do something, and he's not going to let it slide.
Right.
He's going to follow up on what he told me to do. And so growing up, I understood that when I tell myself to do something, I have to follow up on what I tell myself to do.
Right.
If I do not do that, then I'm not disciplining myself to move forward in any arena.
Now that's very powerful, man, because you know when we go through what we're going through at that particular moment when we're young, we don't understand the lessons like what you said that are being learned. Because just like what you just said, my mother used to do me the same way. Yo, you can't go nowhere until you finish your chores. I'm like, yo, my friends out here playing, Mom. She's like, nah, your chores come first. And however long it takes you, that's your fault because you're sitting around here going back and forth with me instead of doing what you're doing. But you take those valuable lessons and you change them and turn them around to apply to your life. And so tell us about your endeavors and things that you're involved in now, behind that discipline that you learned as a child that you are using today to be successful.
I'm going to share when I was young, I was in the Boy Scouts. And there are 12 points to the Boy Scout law. And I'm going to share it so that I can bring home a point.
Okay.
Because when I was young and learning it, I only learned it because it was something we had to do. We had to do it. But the 12 points were a Boy Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, thrifty, cheerful, brave, clean, and reverent. Well, those things that I had in me, but they wasn't conscious, they were subconscious.
Subconscious, right.
So I did not use it until I got into my adulthood and started growing, developing, going into other things where that came into my mind. Well, Andrew, you learned these things when you were small. These things are characteristics that you can use to develop yourself because they are good, sound characteristics. Now, when I was in the Air Force, I was on my way home and I was in the airport and I was just scrolling through, turning around the book stand and looking. There was a book entitled The Magic of Thinking Big.
Okay.
I just scrolled back because I missed it. I scrolled back because I'd never seen that before, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Right.
I scrolled back, so I bought the book. And then on the plane, I started reading it. And, you know, I'm told once the mind is expanded by an idea, it never goes back to its original state.
Right.
So in reading that book, it kind of like expanded my mind. Well, Andrew, what you're doing now is fine. What you're going through is fine because it's just a part of growth.
Right.
But now you understand that there is more to you. There's more that can be developed. There's more that can unfold than what you are understanding at this time. But you have to go through the process.
Right.
That process right now is you are in the Air Force. And you just can't jump from A to Z. You have to go through all of these alphabets to get to that point. And the point that I'm gonna make is you're not gonna really get to Z, but you have a journey starting at A to go through the process to get as far as you can in life, because the bottom line is going to be we all come into B and we all going to pass away. There is nothing that we brought into this world. There's nothing that we're going to take out. So every time I get an opportunity to service somebody, every time I get a chance to help somebody, I'm going to do it. And I ran across Bob Gates several times.
Yes.
And it was, you know, kind of like an unorthodox method in how I met him, because it was at a church service. And the young lady that was putting on the event, I thought I was going to a church service. But when I got there, I found out that this young lady by the name of Miss Tina Harmon was putting on an event and just introducing individuals to people in the community that are into different things, business, book writing, and things of that nature. So that's how I met Bob.
Okay.
Went to a class that he was having every Monday night. And, I just grew mentally from there, learning different things and watching how things grow, watching how he put things together, watch how he introduced material to individuals, watching how he speaks to people, things of that nature. And even though at that particular time I wasn't ready, I still was acquiring information. I still was acquiring a system in place to move forward as a young man.
So it sounds like to me the magic of the mind, or magic of thinking, I think the name of the book was, right?
Yeah.
The magic of thinking
big.
Okay, now that book was the start in the beginning, but you said something that caught my interest when you said the process. Now, Andrew, going through the process from that point of being in the Air Force, reading that book on the plane, also meeting Bob, and at the point you're at now, that process could not have been easy. I'm quite sure you had some days where you like, man, I'm not doing this, man, because it's not working. How did you make it through that point?
I read a statement. Fear has a dead end.
Yes.
Faith has a future. So everything that I did, I had to paradigm from fear to faith.
Okay.
And basically just using the word faith, I'm going to say expectation. My expectation of something coming to be that I never experienced is what kept my mind focused on what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a business owner, entrepreneur. And so I had to look at where I was. I worked for the federal government for over 40 years, and I understood what it meant by the 40-40-40 plan. I was on the 40-40-40 plan. I worked 40 hours for 40 years to retire on 40% of what I couldn't live on while I was working. And to understand that everything that I did was a faith walk. It was an expectation, nothing concrete, not A to Z, but there was a zigzag, there was a roller coaster, there was bump cars, there were ups and downs. There were times when the fear, worry, doubt came into my spirit. And there were times when I had to literally say, hey, when an individual said, hey, cry out to a source bigger than me, which I say, to my understanding, I use the word God. I'm not telling anybody what to do, what not to do.
Right.
But my source of understanding, I had to cry out to God and say, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I cannot do.
Right.
I need your help.
Right.
I need your direction. I need your discerning spirit to guide and direct me. And that's how it unfolds. It has never at one failed me when I do that. I take on the God of my understanding as my CEO. And that's how I regulate. That's how I keep moving.
Right.
That's how I keep looking up. And I use the illustration as a young child at Christmas time. And I'm not, promoting Christmas or Santa Claus, anything like that. But I'm talking about an expectation of something being under that tree on Christmas morning.
Right.
Children have an expectation. They have a belief that, hey, something is going to be there. I don't know what it is. Well, some individuals, some kids are smart and they find out early.
Right.
But they have that expectation. And that's the biggest expectation. If an individual reflect, that's the biggest expectation that an individual can have as a small child. But that expectation has to go from childhood to adulthood in order to experience a feeling I might not know, but I know something is going to happen big. And if I just keep my expectation high, it's going to unfold.
It's going to unfold. I like that you said that 40-40 plan, right? And when you said that 40-40 plan, And since we were talking about God and you crying out, man, I thought about Moses. 40 years in Egypt, 40 years with Jethro, 40 years in the wilderness. But eventually he saw the promised land. And it seems like to me, when you were working that 40-40 plan, you kept your eyes on the end result of what you want to do was to become an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I
Right.
like that. And that's very important, because sometimes when we're going through the wilderness or the valley experience, we take our eyes off where we want to go and look at what we're dealing with versus the expectations of getting to where we are. So let's talk about right now. You said an entrepreneur. Tell us about your endeavors.
Well, when I started, when I got the idea that I wanted to go into business for myself, I had to really think about the choices that I wanted to make, because I knew that individuals could purchase a franchise, and if an individual is willing to pay upward of $150,000 to $200,000, even more, to get involved in a franchise, that's fine.
Right.
But I know that I couldn't do it from a government salary. Neither did I want to borrow the money to do it.
Right.
Because I understood that if it takes upward of 5 years to see a return, then I didn't want to start like that.
Right.
So I chose a resource where it wasn't a big startup. I didn't have a lot of overhead. I did not need employees. I still had the same tax advantages as a brick and mortar. And so that's what I looked at, and that's what I chose to do, and that's what I geared my energies to.
Okay, so Andrew, I need you to break that down. Tell us about your businesses, because the people want to know about what you're doing. And the reason I say they want to know, because I want to show them that they can succeed in being an entrepreneur, because you came from a rural area. Mother was working in domestic work. Your father, you were a farmhand. You were doing certain things, and then you went into the Air Force, and then you went 40-40 plan. So now let's transition to, how did you become an author of this beautiful book called The Successful Sinner, and also other things that you might be doing, so we can start talking about that, so people can know what you do, so they can be a part of what you're doing.
When I one has to, I chose a direct sales profession.
Okay.
And one has to do something that resonates with them.
That's right.
So my platform, what we do is to help consumers, not only consumers, but also commercial entities, save money on their monthly expenses.
Okay.
In other words, we work so that the quality of life can go up, and that the expenditures of life can go down. Right. That's what we work for. And so our platform, and I'm not going to get into the name of the company and stuff like that, because an individual really want to know more about it and saving money.
Right.
You upload your bills, we lower your bills, because we spend over $60 billion a year overpayment on our monthly expenses.
Right.
So what I do is provide a service to the marketplace to help people lower those expenses.
Right.
So if an individual wants to know more about that, certainly they have my information before the program is out. You touch bases with me, and I share the information. In writing I always had the idea that I wanted to write a book. And when in 2013, with the Circle of Champions, I went to Hollywood, Florida. And Bob gave me the opportunity to get on stage and just share a little bit about myself. And so I spoke it. I said, I'm writing a book. The title of that book is going to be, because I hadn't written it, the title of that book is going to be The Successful Sinner.
Right.
And I watched the individuals' faces when I said The Successful Sinner. Like, where you coming from with that? But the thing about it was, I knew inside of me what I wanted to do.
Right.
I was taking a class over at the Prince George's County Community College because I work security. And I had thought about going to get my criminal justice degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started a class where you had to, you could use your work experience for credit.
Right.
First time I've ever done it.
Right.
But in doing it, I'm thinking, I said, well, hey, Andrew, hold up now. You wanted to write a book.
Right.
But what you're doing now is helping you get that together.
Right. Right.
So I started getting some information together. And then from that, I started putting in other information that I had, things that I had written. And that's how I really started putting the book together.
Yes.
And then after that, I just started adding information. And the final product, came up, the Successful Center, Change Your Choices to Change Your Life.
Mm-hmm.
And I used myself as the individual to share with other people things that I had experienced, things that I had went through, decisions that I had made that wasn't conversant to where I want to go.
Right.
And for the mess that I made, I just look at it like God took my mess and turned it into a message.
Right. 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 So basically, when you first told me the title, I did the same thing. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a minute, man. The Successful Center. I'm like, well, where's this book going? And so it threw me for a loop. I'm like, man, what kind of book is this? How can the center be successful? But now go ahead, I'm listening.
Now I share a little bit about how I came also to the title.
Okay.
Because you have to look at it also from a biblical perspective.
Okay.
And there's a scripture, and I'm not a Bible scholar. I do read the Bible, but what I wanted to say is that there's a scripture that reads, we all have sinned and fall short.
Right.
And anybody that say they are not a sinner is a liar.
Right, right.
Now, ever since I was a little boy sitting in church, the preacher talked about sinning.
Right, right, right.
Talked about you being a sinner.
Right.
And that's what I grew up with. You're a sinner.
Right.
Because what was not being understood was
yes.
The more you tell somebody something from a small child,
yes.
It's not with them consciously,
right.
It's with them subconsciously.
Yes.
So as you grow, the more you grow, whether you want to think about it or not, everything you do that doesn't fall within that scripture or the Bible comes out to be you're a sinner.
Right, right.
Now, the greatest thing about this is if there was not, as just some things that was shared with me, if there, and I'm not telling anybody what to believe and not to believe, don't carry me that way. But if it wasn't for the healing that was in the Bible, if it wasn't for the prophecies that was in the Bible, then it would just be a novel to read.
Right, right.
But because of those prophecies, because of that healing, it makes it a great study of who Christ was through his Father, Christ being the Son. And I had to understand that although you say and you have been taught all your life that you're a sinner, because I chose to accept Christ as my personal Savior.
Yes.
That's just me.
Right, right.
Then I no longer become a sinner per se, but to me, the Spirit said, Andrew, you're successful because you're doing something that a lot of people will not do. Not only you saying it, but you're saying it publicly. Because people can talk about God, but they ain't gonna talk about Jesus. And another thing that's important, there is 2,000, it might have gone up a little bit. There are 2,400 religions in the world.
Okay.
Christianity is only one of them. It means there's 2,399 that people are still dealing with. People still claim it for themselves, and they still are like, "Hey, well, your thing is Christianity. My thing is Judaism. My thing is Buddhism. My thing is Hinduism. My thing is Muslim." I can't tell them that they're wrong.
Right.
They feel just as secure and happy about what their worship platform is than I would about mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to understand that because of my choices,
Right.
if my mother or father was a Catholic, I might have been Catholic.
Right.
If my mother and father was a Muslim, I might have been Muslim.
Right.
But coming up in the country, it's Southern Baptist. Southern Baptist
Mm-hmm.
is Christianity, and that's the way it unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Christ never said he was a Christian. The disciples never said he was a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
It was individuals who followed them, who saw them,
Right.
and people following him said, those individuals are Christians. That's how the name came about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So from my standpoint, I would be considered a Christian.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm perfect. It just means that I'm in a religion that has been established.
Right.
Now, when we get to the spiritual part of it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Right. Now, you know, I'm gonna digress just a little bit, because I'm thinking about when you said that you got to the place when you were going through the process to get where you're at now. And this is a Christian podcast, so feel free to talk about God all you want, because people do understand that this is a Christian podcast and it's about God. It's only about God. And what we do can only happen through God, because that's who we believe in. But here, when you said that, and I go back, Andrew, when you said you cried out and said you didn't know what to do and which way to go. And I have to go back to the biblical principles, because it's something about when the children of God cry. Because when they were in bondage in Egypt, they cried unto the Lord. And the Bible says that God heard their cry.
Mm-hmm.
And then he answered their cry by sending them a deliverer. And in your case, he heard your cry. He knew where you wanted to go. And then he introduces you or shows you a man where you thought you were just going to regular church service. And his name was Bob Yates. Hold on, man. Hold on, time out. I got somebody for you. And we're going to help you get, not even saying that you wasn't on your destination, but we're going to push you a little bit further in your destination with this person by the name of Bob Yates. And I just wanted to say that because a lot of people, sometimes we do. Now watch this word, we inclusive myself, we get discouraged, because I was having a talk with Bob tonight. And I said, Bob, man, sometimes I get discouraged. I said, man, sometimes, and I look at these situations, it reminds me so much of Peter when he came out and Jesus told him, Peter said, bid me to come, and Jesus says, come. And Peter was fine as long as he was looking at Jesus. Right. But when he started listening to the wind, listening to the other disciples, he started to sink. And that goes and it correlates to what you were doing, because you stayed focused on the end result and kept persevering. And I wanted to tell my viewers that when you're going through and you feel like you want to give up, just look at your end result and your expectations and where you're going. And I appreciate you saying that, because you dropped a lot of jewels and a lot of things that you were saying. And I want the people to know that they just have to be encouraged, because some days it's going to be difficult. It's going to rain some days. It's not always. And then some days you're going to have some dry patches too, Andrew, where you don't get the water, where you don't get the hope, where you don't get the love, where you don't get the motivation or the pat on the back. You know what I mean? So these things people got to know. And I just wanted you to continue to share those things, how you made it through the valley to get to the place to write a beautiful, beautiful book called The Successful Sinner, because you're so right. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And sometimes we beat ourselves across the head. So just continue to talk about that and how you came out of that. And the book, talk about the book a little bit more.
What I talk about myself. I talk about my trials. I talk about my tribulations. I talk about my mistakes. I talk about my bad decisions.
Okay.
I'm very transparent about me. But I also had to understand that mistakes are not flaws.
Right.
Mistakes are just mistakes.
Right.
And one has to overcome and not beat themselves up because of the mistake that they made. Because sometimes when we make mistakes, we look at it as our worth and our value.
Right.
And we have to understand that our value and our worth is still intact as a human.
That's right.
Just because we might have made a bad decision does not take away from our worth and value as a human being.
That's right. That's right.
So we have to look at individuals, because I'm the hardest judge on me than anybody else could ever be.
That's right. Right. Right.
Because I understand that my free will is exactly what it is. Free will.
That's right.
Free will to do what I want to do when I feel like doing it, when I want to do it. And you know what I had to understand is, well, Andrew, yeah, you got a free will,
Right.
and
Right.
you can ride it. But when your conscience tell you, hey, you've gone a little bit too far,
Right.
why don't you back up, take a look at where you at, reevaluate where you at, and let's make some changes. Let's make some changes. And we're making changes for the good, not for the bad. And
Well,
that's what I have to see about things that I did. Like, I don't mind telling individuals, you know, I used to savor the flavor of the bipolar substance. I don't mind saying that. In other words, I drank liquor. I don't mind telling individuals that I was promiscuous. In other words, I ran women.
Right.
I don't mind telling individuals that I was out there, you know, just having fun.
Right.
But doing that wasn't taking me to where I wanted to go or my end result.
Right.
So I had to change that in order to focus on what was necessary for me to get to where I want to go.
That's right. That's right.
Because I already understood that the final analysis is 6 feet under stiff and cold. I don't care how you turn it over.
That's right. That's right.
So if you want to go, you want to have something to say, hey, I was a service to somebody somewhere at some time, and it was important. In other words, my service was acted as opposed to preached.
Yes. Yes.
I lived a life of service, a life of service. Sometimes a sermon lived is better than the sermon preached. I've heard.
That's right.
And so, out of all the negativism that one might have perceived and judged, oh wow, I didn't know he was like that, man. Oh wow. But you know, all of that is cool because if I cannot be transparent, then you don't know me.
You don't know me.
If I'm transparent with you, you can judge, you can do anything you wanna, but I'm free up here. See, and once I'm free up there, the peace that surpasses all understanding becomes a part of my life.
Right.
Becomes a part of my life. And that's the best part of my life that I could ever want to share with anybody is to have peace with yourself and live so you don't have regrets.
Right.
In other words, if I say I did the sin, but Jesus paid the price.
Right.
Now, I couldn't ask for a better deal than that.
That's right.
Suppose that he didn't.
Right.
You know, I'd be just a mess on top of a mess on top of a mess.
Well, you know what?
But he just say, well, you know, man, I got favor with this guy right here.
Right.
You know, because this guy, as crazy as he might act sometimes, this guy seek my heart.
Right.
And I like that. So I'm going to take care of it.
That's right. So Andrew, let's go back because now, man, I'm taking everything you said, right? I'm going back to Dad, and you use this word discipline, and then I'm going back to the Boy Scouts, the 12 principles, and then, man, I'm coming up and listening to you, and how you say the choices, but also how the discipline came into play where you understood that, okay, I used to do this, I used to do that, and it wasn't getting me nowhere. You came to a conscious decision and awareness saying, listen, man, I'm not getting nowhere doing all this. And I know that there's a better way. And that better way, look what you're doing since you made the conscious decision to do what you're supposed to be doing or what you love doing. Let's do it that way. What you love doing, you get a better outcome. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about having a guilty conscience about making bad choices and bad decisions like you were making before, because then you said something that I like too. that the Bible says, "Whom the Son set free is free indeed."
Mhm.
And you've been set free, but also I have to understand. I'm just going off everything you just said, where you are comfortable in being you and not being who somebody else wants you to be, and that gives you peace. Man, you said so much, man. I'm like, woo, Jesus, I like it all. So when you get to the place where you got that peace, so basically, how you got that peace was walking in your authentic self and not trying to be what somebody else wants you to be.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a scripture,
Mm-hmm.
and it reads, and I could be paraphrasing a little bit, but it reads, "Be not conformed,
Ooh.
but transformed by the renewing of your mind."
Yes.
Now, as a child
Mm-hmm.
sitting in church,
Mm-hmm.
the preacher telling you you're a sinner.
Right. Right.
You're a sinner. So every time you go out of church, if nothing else resonates, you know, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner.
Right. Right.
Now, there is, and you know, individuals don't have to agree, that's fine,
Right.
but I'm going to share it as I got it.
Yes.
Because sometimes you have to look at things that are part of life that could be secular,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they have spiritual significance.
That's right. That's right.
What I was taught, and I've never heard it in church.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, that's great.
Right.
There's a part of the mind that's called the reticular activating system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What that reticular activating system does is supposed to protect the individual. In other words, when you are presented with something new,
Right.
if it does not resonate with what's already going on inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
it's reflected.
Right.
In other words, I'm not accepting this because this is new to me, so
Right.
hey, I'm going to stay away from it.
Right. Right.
The same thing, the very thing that an individual is reflecting could be the very thing that an individual needs to help their salvation.
That's
And
right.
I mean salvation in more than a spiritual sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It could be emotional.
Right.
It
Right.
could be physical.
Mm-hmm.
It could be financial.
Right.
And of course, spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
But those are things that we don't think about.
Right.
Then there is the amygdala. The amygdala is from the emotional standpoint.
Right.
The stem at the bottom of the brain. And anything I say, look it up. And if it's not right, say, oh, yo, Andrew, look, man, you was
Right.
talking. I looked up and stayed up. And you
Right.
lying. You just said something loud with that talk.
Right.
But look it up and see
Right.
if it's.
Right.
And you're always welcome to say, well, okay,
Mhm.
what you said, hey, I found some more stuff. Just tell me, that's fine.
Right.
But when you talk about the emotional side of an individual, and you talk about things that we don't know or we could know, but we don't want to accept it because it is new to us, then we fail to learn.
Right.
Your mind can't be renewed if you are not accepting what can help you renew it.
Have to renew it.
It's very important that we understand sometimes there are more books out there
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible. I'm not saying neglect the Bible. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
I'm just saying there are things out there can enlighten a person
Mm-hmm.
that could be very significant,
There we go.
even helping them understand things that in the Bible, because if it's not right, you say, well, hey, that go against what I believe, and that's
Right.
fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at least you know about it.
You know about it, right?
So you can't have a renewed mind if you're not accepting anything
Mm-hmm.
that's new.
That's true. That's true.
You got to know
Mm-hmm.
when I was coming up, how it was explained to me,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, there are things that, how I was put, we are unconsciously incompetent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Then there's a stage where we are unconsciously competent. We know we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The next stage would be consciously competent.
Mm-hmm.
We know, but we have to learn. We have to expand. We have to get out there and make our lives better till we get to a point where we are consciously, unconsciously competent, meaning that we can do things without even thinking about it.
Right.
Driving a car, we do it without thinking about it.
Right.
Riding a bicycle, we do it without thinking about it. You in business, you do it without thinking about it.
Right.
Because now you understand that you have come through stages of life that have put you in a position that say, hey, this is where I want to be. I'm constantly I'm constantly learning. So I look at my life to be at a stage of being, I guess, consciously competent. I'm learning.
Right.
I'm learning each and every day. I learn from other people. The old saying, you know, if you hang around people, the 5 people that you hang around with, the closest 5, if the closest 5 are successful, then you'll be number 6.
Right.
If the closest 5 is indigent, you'll be number 6.
Right.
So the individual has to make the choice of, and I'm not saying that's for everybody,
right.
But the individual have to make the choice of who they want to be around, who they want to learn from,
right.
What's good for them, what's bad for them. I have, because I don't seek something for nothing.
Right.
I have purchased coaching for $200 an hour, and that might be cheap. I don't know.
Right.
But that's what the lady told me. Well, I said I should have said that to person, but still I know who it is. But anyway, that's what the fee was.
Right.
And I'm sitting listening like, well, if you're my coach, why am I answering all the questions for you? And you know more than I know. So the only thing you do is telling me what I just told you. And I don't think that we are put in a situation if we're learning something.
Right.
Choose carefully who you want to learn from.
That's right.
If you have a coach, choose carefully who you want your coach to be.
That's right.
If you want a mentor, choose carefully who you want your mentor to be.
Right. That's true.
Friends or whatever. Choose carefully.
Yes.
Well, because the world is not made that way. You know, the world is made from an opposite standpoint.
That's right. Well, Andrew, you know what, man? You know, I always say this. You be dropping a lot of Jews, and you take me right back to the scripture where he says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. And if you're not open to learning or new ideas, you're going to stay stuck in the same place that you always was in. Yeah. Because we can go back and look at this thing we talk about, the bugs in the jar, the grasshoppers, or if you want to put frogs in the pot, or whatever the case may be. And at first you're going to bump your head. We know the story. But then when the top is off, who's keeping you in that position? Because you can jump out of ignorance all by yourself. Because what I like about the whole dynamics of everything that you're saying, you go back to reading and education. I go back to that book that you read on the airplane. Then I go back to previous other books that you're talking about, open up your mind. And that's so important because there's more books out there than just the Bible. Don't limit yourself to just the Bible. But guess what, Andrew? All roads still lead back to the Bible, because even though I read all those other books and I came right back with scripture, my people perish for the lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, because they're not willing, again, to be free enough, like what you talked about earlier, that you're free enough in confidence in who you are to say, you know what, I can learn, and I am open to learn. I cannot only be led by my, what you call it, amygdala, my emotions, but I have to go somewhere further than that, because sometimes your emotions will stop you, because your emotions will say, no, man, I'm scared. Man, I can't do it. So I like what you said, because we have to get to the place, if we want to be successful, we want to be the men and women that God called us to be, we really got it. Because I'm going to say this, even though God told Moses that they were going to go over to Canaan, that they were going to walk on dry land, Andrew, God told Moses to put his foot in the water first. And when you put your foot in the water, you're going to see me move by my power. Then you shall walk on dry land. But you got to have faith in what I told you. Now, sometimes, like you said, I see the ending or the destination or the end. But sometimes you got to walk by faith. You're not going to see it as you walking along the way. And so many times we have that I want it now mentality, not realizing you got to put in the work, man, put in the research, because it sounds like to me that you put in the research to do what you're doing and to get where you're at now. But also, I love the part where you said that you're transparent, because people need to see that you're not the only one dealing with certain situations or circumstances. When you talked about drinking and the women and etc. Yeah, I've been there, done that, but look at me now. Yeah, this is a song they got say, look at me now.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
this is that's why I love doing the podcast, because it's a ministering podcast.
Mhm.
And I love let's talk about this for like the next maybe 5 or 6 minutes, because we don't have that much time. When you said that you are serving, how did you get to the place where you realize that you live to serve? Because that's very key.
There are two things. One, Martin Luther King
Mm-hmm.
Jr.
Mm-hmm.
His statement about being a servant.
Mm-hmm.
The other, uh, my pastor,
Mm-hmm.
um, when he was washing our feet,
Mm-hmm.
something that he's done, but that was an example of
Yes.
serving.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Martin Luther King said, you don't have to have all the accolades or whatever, you just have to be willing
Mm-hmm.
to serve. And the greatest among us, spiritually, from a spiritual standpoint,
Yes.
the greatest among us is going to be a servant of the people.
Yes.
In whatever capacity is chosen for that individual,
Mm-hmm.
they have to have the tenacity to
Mm-hmm.
serve.
Yes.
I like your analogy about the frog, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
talk about that, the frog in the pot.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you put the frog in hot water,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to jump right out.
That's right.
But if you put the frog in cold water
Mm-hmm.
and turn the heat up, he's going to slowly get adjusted to the environment,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he's going to cook right in that water
Yes.
because he has got accustomed to where he's at.
Yes. Yes.
So he's going to be cooked without even realizing that he's being cooked.
Come on, man. Yes. Well, yes, Andrew. Yes.
That's so important.
Yes. Yes.
So important. We
Mhm.
are caught up in that cold water syndrome. We are put in the cold water, and
Yes.
the heat is just being turned up slowly.
Yes.
We being cooked and don't even realize that we're gonna be done.
Mm-mm-mm. Man, you said a
It's so
mouthful.
important, man.
Yes, you said a mouthful right there, because when you mentioned the frog and the water, and it almost brings tears to my eyes, because I see it every day in the neighborhoods that I ride in, and the mentality of the people that I deal with to a degree, where you can be cooked and you believe the only place you can stay is in poverty. You can be in the process of being cooked where you lose your motivation and your will to succeed, and don't even realize that you can get out of that state. You can get out of being impoverished. You can get out of the lack of education. You can get out of financial illiteracy if you just open your mind to the possibilities and start having the discipline to put those things into your lives. If it's just reading for 5 minutes to start out. And you said a very powerful piece that I love too, find the right mentor that can help you go to the next level until you get to the confidence level where you can start walking on your own. And that's so important. I mean, Andrew, I'm not going to lie to you, man. I certainly enjoyed you. I got to have you on again, because everything you said, believe it or not only encouraged the viewers, but you encouraged me. You encouraged me. I mean, everything you said was what I needed at this right particular moment. And I really appreciate it. And it's the way that you articulate it, because I know it's coming from a sincere place. And I love it, man. Yes.
There's one thing I'll share before we go. And,
Okay.
when I look in the mirror, I
Mhm.
see more. I look for more than that image standing in front of me.
Yes.
And, Les Brown always say, he's a little quick saying, he say, if you want something bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time, your peace, your sleep for it, if you gladly sweat for it, fret for it, plan for it, lose all terror of the opposition for it, simply go after that thing with all of your capacity, sagacity, strength, faith, hope, confidence, and stern pertinacity.
Yeah.
If neither feminine gout, sickness or pain of body and brain can keep you away from the thing that you want, if dogged and grim, you beseech and beset it, with the help of God, you can get it. And that's the only way you can get it, with the help of God.
Yes, you know what, man. You know who you remind me of? You know Michael Dyson? You spitting them bars, man. And I'm enjoying it. But Andrew, before you go, let the people know how they can get in contact with you, how they can find you, and also how they can purchase your book or any other things that you might have available for them.
One can go on Amazon.com. Amazon.com/author.
Yes.
AUTHOR. Amazon.com/author Andrew Walker.
Okay.
You can reach me 301-586-2177. Let me repeat that. 301-586-2177. My website, DrewsCostReduction.com. Drews, DREWS. Drews Cost, COST, Reduction, REDUCTION.com. DrewsCostReduction.com. And also info@DrewsCostReduction.com. Those are ways that you can touch bases with me. Of course, if you get the book off of Amazon, it's $20. If you get the book through me, it's going to be $15, but I'm going to add the cost of mailing it to you, which is about $3.25.
Right.
So you think about $18.25 if you reach out to me.
But they still save you.
But it's still safe. So if you want to hear the ups and downs of a black man that just put forth effort to live a life of faith, expectancy, helping someone else any way he can, if he can, you always can ask.
Right.
What is it, man? What is it about you that's any different from anybody else?
Right.
And I would say, read Psalms 139, chapter 139, verse 14.
Okay.
We are all fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
So you, the audience, is fearfully and wonderfully made along with me.
Yes. Now, Andrew, you know what? For the viewers, right? I'm gonna have all this information up on the edited version of this podcast. Everything, the information he just gave you, how to get the book, how to get in contact with him, and also here's the book, guys. Just in case you're wondering, here's the cover, and this is a nice book to read. It's very powerful, and so remember, viewers, all the information that was just inseminated, I'm going to put in the notes at the end of the edited version, which will be out tomorrow. This version will stay up on Facebook until tomorrow. But I want to read something to you right quick, Mr. Andrew. Rosa Walker Martin. Do you know who that is?
That's my sister.
Oh, hey, sis, how you doing? She says, great conversation, very informative. Bless you both. So she's having a great moment, and I thank you guys for watching.
Thanks, sis.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said thanks, sis, for plugging in.
Yeah,
that's my support system, man.
Hey, man, we all need it, man. And
then
we had another friend that came on, Brenda Powell, said good evening, amen. And Denise Love, good evening, gentlemen. So, but more people are going to watch this. You can also find this podcast on YouTube, Wayman Daniels Level Up. You can also find it on Instagram, Wayman Daniels. Portions of it will also be on TikTok. You guys, I thank you guys for watching. I thank you for being a guest on Level Up. But Mr. Walker, we always
thank you, man.
Well, you got to do this, man. We got to get a little silly because this is my signature goodbye.
Appreciate you.
Hey, guys, thank you for watching Level Up. My next week's guest, or maybe 2 weeks' guest, is going to be Pastor Dallas from Dallas Texas. And guess what, guys? You can find him on Instagram. Popcorn Preach. Hey, Dad, Popcorn Preach. He says popcorn. And you know what? He just talks off the dome. He's going to be my next guest on Level Up. A fantastic guy from Houston, Texas. I get him mixed up because he says my name is Pastor Dallas. I said, okay. I thought he was from Dallas. But again, we're going to put all this information up for Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, don't go anywhere. You guys have a great day. I'm going to end this broadcast, but Mr. Walker, you stay on, okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.